Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Chat Prather is a humorist and a podcast host. He went on Facebook to complain about the cost of his lunch at the airport in Houston. Showed a picture of a burger and said, at Houston's Bush Airport, this was $62.16. There are so many directions I could go with this post right now. Unfortunately, I have bigger things to worry about as I sit in seat 1E of a United Boeing 737 awaiting takeoff. People started blaming Biden for inflation. The thread went crazy. The burger's actually $14, folks. I'm going to start with a little inside baseball here. This is from Ashley Carmen's Soundbite newsletter. It's about podcasting. This is on Bloomberg.com. She writes, whenever I've spoken to folks about who might have a sense of just how big the Joe Rogan experience is, I always get the same answer, huge. Last month, Spotify quietly began testing a feature that shows just how popular Rogan and other podcasters actually are. The metric we're looking at here is followers. By the way, if you don't follow this podcast, please do. Ashley writes, and I think this was from Thursday, Rogan's show, as of this morning, has 14.5 million followers. That's nearly 3 times more than the next followed program, TED Talks Daily. So this is on Spotify. Anecdotally, into the eye test, the podcast audience on Spotify tends to be younger than Apple Podcasts. Generally speaking, I find Apple Podcasts listening about 60% of the audience and Spotify about 10 to 15, depending on the show, different shows. I'll pull up right here. I'll tell you what this show is doing. So for the last 30 days on Daily Comedy News, 56% of 55.93, that's my hesitation there, I won't make the edit, 55.93 on Apple Podcasts and 12.48 on Spotify, Overcast at 4.73, iHeartRadio 3.56, and then a bunch of others. Just so you get a sense of what we're talking about here in terms of relative popularity. Point being, Rogan, 14.5 million followers. TED Talks Daily, 5 million. I won't read them all, but let's see here. Caller Daddy's third with 3.7. Theo Von with 1.1 million followers. That's more than Jason and Travis Kelce. Travis, you may know, dates Taylor Swift. Ashley writes, a podcast with Katy Perry as a host. Only reached 5,000 followers. Wow. Seth Rogen's Storytime got to 102,000. Matt McCusker and Shane Gillis's podcast has 85,000 Patreon members, yet they only have 312,000 Spotify followers. Chapo Trap House has 41,000 paid subscribers, earning them $175,900 per month, slightly more than I'm making here. And they only have 127,000 Spotify followers. This show here on Spotify as a record on Friday has on Spotify 3,493 followers. Again, Katy Perry, 5,000. According to Spotify, for my show, 36.6% of you are between 45 and 59, with another 26.41 between 35 and 44, and almost 12%, 28 to 34. I also see here there was a spike on March 13th. What happened March 13th? That episode was titled, Was Katt Williams Right? Was John Cena a humiliation ritual? Plus, Amy Schumer had her uterus bronzed and Jerry Seinfeld loves Mad Men. All right, apparently people like that one. Looks like we might actually, perhaps, possibly, maybe get that Office. Reboot's not the right word here. Showrunner Greg Daniels is looking to create a new series in the world of Dunder Mifflin. He's tapped the co-creator of Nathan For You to help lead the project. It's not a reboot of The Office, but it's set in the same universe. So I guess, Dwight could drop by, but it's, different paper company, or maybe it's a guy podcasting in his basement. Who knows? You'll watch. We're all going to watch. Craig Ferguson might return to late night. He told the Spokesman, I have meetings next week. Next week is now this week in Los Angeles for a show. I'm considering doing a show, but I just don't want to do one every day. I like doing a talk show, but not enough to do it every single day. When he left the Late Late Show, he said, I had enough. I enjoyed it, but it was all consuming. Some people are all about it. I'm very good friends with Jay Leno. We do gigs together sometimes. And he talks about how much work there was with our talk shows. Jay was much more professional than I was and spent more hours working on things every day. The tough part for me is all the time I spent away from your family. Talk shows just take over your life. I'm grateful for the show, but I had to step away from it. I'm thinking here, so it's now 12:29. I probably started prepping the shows. I often will be prepping several at once. What happens is I do the news sweep, and I'll be like, okay, this one needs to go tomorrow. This can wait. Let me throw this one to the weekend. The weekends are a little more generic. So I've been working on the pod, and I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you about my day. About 2.5 hours so far, and I've done a bunch of prep, and I've recorded yesterday and today, and I'm going to do one more. I have a cool idea for Easter Sunday that I'm going to work on next. Oh, that's why it's so long. I'll just tell you. For Easter Sunday, I want to explore up-and-coming Australian comedians because it's festival season down there. So I pulled a lot of clips. So that'll be more of, it's not a generic episode. Like I put a lot more work into that episode than I did into, say, today's episode because I pulled, 20 clips. So anyway, next Easter Sunday, you'll hear a bunch of comedians that you probably don't know unless you're an expert in the up-and-coming Aussie comedian scene. I'd be impressed if you were. Anyway, so I've put in 2.5 hours. I can only imagine how much work Jay Leno did. You have to prep for the guests. You have to actually read their books or watch their movies, and you can't wing it. And like I can stop here and redo something, and those shows, for the most part, would be live to tape. So you got to actually prepare. The flip side is I don't have 15 writers. Ferguson talks about being a stand-up. He says, that's the best part of going on the road. It's all on me. He was hitting Spokane. He said, even though I'm coming for the first time, I must say Spokane is my favorite city in the United States. He wasn't sure what he was going to talk about, but I know I won't be talking politics. I made a rule 7 years ago that I wouldn't talk about politics on stage. It's a stylistic choice. I talked about this with Jim Gaffigan. His stylistic choice is never to cuss. He'll cuss occasionally off stage, but he's more comfortable not cussing while performing. That's how I am about politics. I'll just be there to provide levity when I perform. He now splits time between New York City and Scotland. I left LA in 2018. It's a one-industry town, and I had to get away. He misses interacting with his guests. He says, I had fun with it. I was happy to see Robin Williams, Gary Fisher, Betty White, and Kristen Bell. Robin Williams was just what you say he was, but a lot of people don't know how kind he was. He was the sweetest man. You know, Craig, if you miss interacting with people, you do have a podcast where you interview celebrities. You know this, right? I'm confused. Robin Williams used to talk about stand-up being like jazz. I get it, since it can be improvisational. Leno and I were just talking the other day about the music and comedy connection. Jay said, you start out with your big number and then you go to a ballad. Comics think like musicians, and that's not a bad thing. These have been long lately. I think the episodes have been really good, but I'm trying not to do like 35 minutes a day. I just bumped 5 stories again. Gerard Carmichael was on Jimmy Kimmel during the week. This is one of the stories that got bumped Friday and Saturday, but it's a good one. He was on with Kimmel, and he talked about Taylor Swift. Uh-oh, be careful. You know what happened to Joe Coy? So one time Joe Coy was hosting the Golden Globes, right? And he told this horrible Here, let's listen to this.
The big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL, on the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift.
And basically what happened was Taylor Swift murdered Joe Coy's career. That's what happened. So Gerard Carmichael said, Taylor, that's my best friend. Taylor Swift is my best friend, but I'm not her best friend. She's my best friend. Can you think of a better friend to have than Taylor Swift? She's very smart and interesting. And you know what else? There's more shots of her on the NFL than on the Golden Globes. Whoa, Johnny Mac. Whoa, why'd you go there? Whoo, hoo, hoo. Anyway, they connected at a Bills playoff game. The Bills were playing the Chiefs. He said, she knows more about football than I do. Kimmel said, did you ask questions about football? And Gerard said, yeah, I'm the girlfriend in that situation. Tig Notaro has a special out Tuesday on Amazon. It's called Hello Again. Here's a clip.
My wife, Stephanie, is directing tonight. Tonight's my night, though, okay? Stephanie called 911 and a gigantic fireman appeared. I thought, I get it now. I could get used to this. Mommy's home. I came around the corner and our son said, it's just her. Does everything have to be a joke with you? Kinda, yeah.
Right. Seems like you've become the de facto Hollywood comic. Your social circle includes a lot of big names. So there are jokes about Reese Witherspoon and an A-list party. I don't want to spoil your last special. Do you ever worry about that causing conflict? Tig said no, because I'm not ever saying anything that's mean. I don't know if you're familiar with my Taylor Dane story. See, it's not a Taylor Swift story. It's a Taylor Dane story. Sometimes people will misinterpret that to think I'm bashing her, but I'm not. It's more like, yeah, she was rude to me, but I don't care. It's amusing. I've since met Taylor Dane, and I really appreciated that there wasn't a heaviness to it. She was like, I heard you'd been telling stories about me. Sounds about right. I was probably a couple cocktails in. I love ribbing people, and I love when people rib me, so I don't run anything by anyone. Well, Tig Notaro, I dare you to make a joke about Taylor Swift going to an NFL game. I double dare you. You saw what happened to Joe Coy, didn't you not? Teague said, my special taping almost didn't happen because there was a moment where I thought I couldn't do it. I was touring Europe and the airline lost my luggage. I was just making rounds around Europe for 2.5 weeks. When I went to the airport to try and find it, somebody checked me with their giant suitcase and launched me. I fractured my wrist. Oh no. And ended up on crutches with my leg in a brace. 3 days before I taped, I still couldn't bend my knee. The outfit I was wearing for my special wasn't what I planned because my suitcase was still on its own tour without me. When I fell, it was at the Manchester airport, and I'd never actually picked up the luggage before the ambulance came and got me. It ended up in a storage unit. It was the biggest circus. And that is your comedy news for today. Let's get out on the laugh. I just bumped another 5 stories. We're going to have long episodes for a few days here. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might enjoy it too. See you tomorrow.